Good evening. It is Monday, December 9th. This is the Guilford Board of Education. Welcome to our December business meeting. I ask that you join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we dive into the meat of the meeting, I am going to ask that we add an agenda item to the meeting. Specifically, I'm going to ask that we add 9.5, which will be ratification of the paraprofessional administrative clerical contract to the agenda. Is there a motion to add the contract?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so at 9.5, we're going to be asked to act on ratifying that contract. Action on minutes for November 11th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the November 11th, 2024 minutes?
So moved. Second.
Any corrections, comments or corrections?
I had one minor on page 3. Bottom paragraph, Mr. Delaventura commented,
Yes.
not commended.
While we're on that page, oh, you may have something. Go ahead.
Okay, no, just on page 4, item 9.5.3, on a motion made by Dr. Herson, seconded by Mrs. Fenn. I think it's Penalosa. Yeah. That's all.
Oh, excellent, thank you. I missed that. Back to page 3, 9.1, the bold heading, a very minor, at the end of that first line, students MBDA project.
MBDA.
MBDA. And then on page 2, and actually, our student reps can help you with this, I think. Under Guilford Lakes, third grade students participated in an in-house field trip with representatives from Mystic Seaport where students learned about is it boating?
That's what I heard. I think it was local government, because it was.
Oh, so voting is accurate?
Yes, I believe that is accurate.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. I just, as I was reading it, I was
I
like.
know, I was reading that too. I was like, this is people.
Well,
Seaport.
I know, right.
Penguins vote?
Thank you. That's right. I was trying, thank you for your help. Much appreciated. Then never mind, there's no correction there.
There's a minor typo on page 2, under Guilford Lakes, also on the first bullet. It should say Lakes Trunk or Treat.
Oh, yes, treat. Thank you. All right, anything else? So I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against or abstentions? Any abstentions? No. All right. Now approval of the November 25th, 2024 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any corrections to these minutes? All right, hearing none. I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving these minutes, please say aye.
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 Abstain.
And then Mr. Delventura abstains. All right. Oh, and do you need to abstain?
I need to abstain.
And Ms. Rader abstains as well.
For the November 25th
But yes,
minutes.
yeah. Just for the November 25th. All right. Item 4, public comments for topics on the agenda. Is there anyone in the public who would like to present a comment to the board? All right, hearing none. We're up to review and approval of expenditures for the month of November 2024. I was the reviewer this month. The financial reports for November include the following. Expenditures were $5,248,219.85. Expenditures and encumbrances through the end of November were 37.48% of the budget as compared to 37.44% in the prior year. Revenue for November 2024 was $25,003.62, which included $21,450 for the Magnet Transportation Grant, $950.62 for non-resident tuition, and $2,603 for pre-K tuition. Among the various budget categories, we see that salaries and transportation were in line with prior years. Employee benefits, tuition, and supplies and materials were a little bit above, and purchase services and capital a little bit below. And the warrant that is being submitted for payments is $2,034,317.06. We went over this report and the warrants in detail in the Operations Committee meeting that happened just prior to this, but I will open the floor to my colleagues if anyone has additional questions or comments. All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the November 2024 financial reports for fiscal year 24-25?
So,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's everybody. Thank you. Item number 6 on the agenda, communications. Do any of my colleagues have communications to share?
We continue to hear and get letters regarding the high school weight room
Yes.
in favor of expanding upon that with both equipment and with staffing.
Excellent. I also received a couple of communications around the Italian class offerings at the high school, hoping that there might be the ability to expand those offerings next year. And then I did hear some comments, which we did request.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Of the
think we'll go
calendar,
into
yeah.
them when we go to the calendar agenda item, but did hear some feedback around the calendar options, which we're going to be voting on tonight.
And Dr. Balistraci, I would just add at this moment that I have appreciated, I believe there have been 6 board members now who I have had the opportunity to tour through the weight room spaces, and so I have
Oh, wonderful.
appreciated, considering the level of interest around the weight room in this year's budget cycle, I've appreciated that opportunity to share the space with board members.
Wonderful. Excellent. Other communications? All right. Student reps, you're up. Wonderful to have you tonight.
Okay. So for Melissa Jones Elementary, they recently wrapped up their Tommy Fund for Childhood Cancer, and this time their campaign is called Hats for Hope, and it's an awareness campaign that benefits local kids facing cancer, and the students and faculty contributed $1 or more and wore a hat to school. And with the funds raised, which this year was $701, they helped children and families being treated at the Tommy Fund Pediatric Hematology and Oncology Center at the Yale New Haven Hospital. And they're also having the Festive Fridays. So recently they had a Wear Flannel Friday. And then on December 13th, they're having an Ugly Sweater Friday. And then on December 20th, they're having a PJ Day. And they're also having a whole school sing-along, which is fun. And on December 17th, Voices will be visiting them. I'm excited to come. And for Baldwin Middle School, they also participated in Hats for Hope, and their principal said that they had a tremendous amount of participation. And they're also having an hour of code to highlight computer science, and the teachers are facilitating computer simulations, programming, and coding activities. And then lastly, for Baldwin, they're having a Cocoa Cafe, on December 20th, and this is a Belgian middle school tradition where they have hot cocoa and cookies, and they get to finish it off on a fun note, with band and orchestra performances, and that's it from my school.
For Guilford Lakes, they also participated in the Hats for Hope fundraiser to support the Tommy Fund for Cancer, and it was a big hit. Lakes had a $489 goal, and from online donations alone, they raised $790, which doesn't count the money they collected on December 5th. Guilford Lakes 4th grade community service committee is also teaming up with Toy Drive Moms to help bring our community together this holiday season. Students will send in new unopened toys to donate to local families in need. Last year, Lakes donated over 400 toys to local families. And then Robbie Brooks, Ashwin's older brother in 4th grade, assisted his dad, the fossil collector, to answer questions and pass around fossils to students in 2nd grade classes. They learned so much to complement the fossils units of study, and they enjoyed a special activity of drawing and writing about their favorite fossils. A big thank you to Mr. Brooks and Robbie.
Woohoo! Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
For A.W. Cox Elementary, they worked on some art skills this month, including studying various famous artists from history, and they created clay pumpkins and paper bag sculptures, as well as learning finger knitting. In the library, the students learned to differentiate fiction and nonfiction, as well as exploring more genres and focusing on internet safety and recognizing misinformation. In PE class, they worked on their flag football unit, where they practiced proper handoff and throwing techniques. In music, they were celebrating National Native American Heritage Month through songs and instruments. And students explored cultural roots and began learning the ukulele. As far as other community activities, they engaged in teamwork, creative exploration, and emphasizing safety in all classes and activities. And then some GHS notes, where that intramural volleyball starts pretty soon, and we also had a couple pep rallies recently. One was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving break, and we have one upcoming on the Friday before the holidays.
Continuing off of GHS, we had a homecoming right before Thanksgiving break, which was really fun. And then winter sports are starting back up. We have indoor track, basketball, wrestling, fencing, hockey, and ski team. And even though the Guilford hand football game did not go as expected, we're hoping for a win in our winter sports this season.
And then recently on Friday and Saturday we had our tree lighting concerts, and that was really fun. Voices had a great time, concert choir had a great time, and it was a big turnout. I'm pretty sure we sold out our first 2 shows, and it was really fun. And auditions for the musical are happening next week. And again, just a reminder, if you want Voices to come carol at your party, just let Miss Allen know.
Very good.
What's the musical?
It's You're in Town.
You're in town.
Oh, wow.
It was going to be Pippin, and then I think they made some changes.
Gotcha.
And by the way, those concerts, I've been in Guilford for 21 years, but that was my first time going to those concerts, and it just was so moving and blew
They are
me away.
spectacular.
You guys, it's so beautiful and amazing. It was wonderful.
It's like the night you go to the tree light, and I went right after the concert, and you're just like, I just love my town.
I've had the opportunity to go many, many years, but it was great to hear Mr. Gom note that this was the 40th year.
Right, 40th year.
of the concerts being,
And his 100th show.
yes.
Yeah, that was the 6
But-
o'clock show.
Yeah.
And I'll just add, I really appreciate that to be able to have the winter concerts and our graduation in the heart of our community
Yeah.
on the town green is just something really special. And you don't see it in every community. And for us to be able to center our students in the center of our town twice every school year is really special. And the winter concerts are a particularly important
yeah.
piece of the culture around here.
And obviously it's a success because of what a great job the students do. But I will say every year, I see plenty of people in the audience that I know that have no kids
Who keep going.
in the school system. It really does draw the community. It's
Yeah.
terrific. It's really terrific.
It would be a good evening to hold the budget referendum.
You wouldn't mind. No. Yeah.
Spirits are high.
Spirits are high. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Other questions for our student reps? I also love hearing just all of the great community social action that is happening with students in our school. So important.
Yeah, it's
Reaching
really
out
nice
to
see
others.
it all like in all the different grade levels from like kindergarten all the way up to the high school. It's really nice.
It really is. It really is. I love to see it. So wonderful. We're not going to see you all till after the holidays. So whatever holidays you celebrate, I hope you have a wonderful time with friends and family
And enjoy your time off.
and enjoy your time off.
Have a good break.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are welcome to go. You are welcome to stay, but we really appreciate you. Thanks so
you
much.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Superintendent's report. Dr. Freeman, you have a field trip to tell us about.
Yeah, I'm going to add one item, but I've got a particularly brief report this evening. So
Okay.
I do want to draw your attention to item 8.1. You've got materials in your packet. I'm just bringing to your attention the fact that our boys hockey team will be experiencing an out-of-state field trip. It is important to note that while they are participating in an annual tournament and have participated before, they will not be missing any school days, and there is no cost associated with this trip, as the hockey boosters will be picking
Right.
up the expenses for our students. So no action required on the part of the board, but I am obligated to bring it to your attention and want to take this opportunity to thank the hockey boosters for providing this opportunity for our boys.
Absolutely.
Great.
Sure is.
Only other item that I would note is a reminder for the board and for the community that on January 13th in this room at our next regular business meeting, we will be presenting this year's initial budget. And so we are essentially coming to the end stages of preparing our administrative budget. We'll be putting some final touches on preparing the materials for you and the Board of Finance, and we will be presenting that budget to this board and to the community for the first time on January 13th at 7:30 in this room.
Excellent. Good reminder. Thank you.
And that concludes my report for this evening.
All right.
That was good.
Holiday spirit.
All right. We are up to the board agenda item 9.1, which is to act on a personnel item. We're going to do this a little differently. I'm going to note that we're going to be asked to ratify the appointment of the following administrator, Doug Hamill, to the Central Office Assistant Superintendent of Operations position effective July 1st, 2025. But before we vote on that, I did want to turn over to Dr. Freeman just to give us a little introduction to this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Mr. Hamill, if I could invite you to come up and join us
Absolutely.
at the board table. So I'll start by noting that in October, Mr. Bowden made us aware of his plans to retire. And so I want to start by thanking Jason for everything that he has done in the district and, in fact, in building out the Assistant Superintendent for Operations. Jason created that position with us in Guilford Public Schools, and thank you for everything that you've done in establishing that. We are going to miss you. Having said that, we also have the opportunity to reintroduce Doug Hamill to the community tonight. So it has been 10 years since we've talked about Doug's resume here in Guilford Public Schools. And so just want to start by reminding the board and sharing with the community that Doug comes into this meeting this evening, he's got degrees in both business and in education. In fact, Doug worked for 5 years in business and industry before making a career shift and entering education. He has spent the last 20 years in public education in Connecticut as a teacher and through 4 principalships. His most important qualification as I bring him forward to the board tonight is that for the last 10 years, he has been the successful superintendent, the successful principal at Baldwin Middle School. The board knows Doug and knows the work that Doug has done at Baldwin Middle School. The leadership team knows Doug. In fact, Doug has been the president of the Administrative Association here in Guilford Public Schools for some time. The parent community in Guilford knows Doug. Every student, as they have moved through Guilford Public Schools for the last 10 years, has passed through Baldwin. The parent community knows Doug, respects his work, and trusts Doug. And the kids like him, too. He has been a fixture in Guilford Public Schools for the last 10 years. I am honored to bring Doug forward tonight and to ask the board to approve him in the position of assistant superintendent moving forward. I will note, we only advertised this position in-house. I was very confident as we needed to address the vacancy that Jason created, that we had the talent in district and that we had the right people in district. Having Doug here tonight only proves that I was right on this one. There was no need to search outside. Doug is here and ready to take the position. I invite the board to spend a little time talking with Doug. I'm asking for your approval for this recommendation tonight. And after the vote has been taken, I'm happy to talk a little bit about our plans for transition for the rest of the school year as well.
I don't want to get off on the wrong foot, but...
You're gonna correct me?
Yes, 28 years in education, 20 as an administrator. So I just, sorry.
It's important. No. And Dr. Freeman, also, there, with an internal candidate, there is still an interview process. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to the community as well.
That Dr. Ballestraci participated in,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So Doug, welcome to the table.
Thank you.
Great to have this consideration. I do want to turn it over to colleagues. Again, I was part of an interview process, so had the opportunity to ask Mr. Hamill some questions, but I wanted to offer my colleagues a chance to ask any questions they might have.
I'll start. A comment first. So first, as a parent, both my daughters enjoyed having you as their principal, and I cannot speak highly enough of the experience that they had at Baldwin. Secondly, over the last few weeks, I've had to be quiet and zip my mouth about what is going, what potentially could be going on with this position, because I've had members of Baldwin reaching out to me saying, "Say it ain't so." So it's a testament, I think, to exactly the culture that you've built at Baldwin, and the fact that there are, I could tell you, people, and you've probably experienced it today as you talk to most of your staff and team, that are really going to miss you. And I think that says a lot about your professionalism, how you are as a teammate here at Guilford Public Schools, and what you're going to be doing in central office as well. And that brings me to kind of my central office question, and that is, what intrigues you about operations? Because it's quite a step in the direction. Being someone in operations myself, there's a lot of things that excite me, a lot that don't. But what about it that you're going to get excited about?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I'm attracted to in operations is that we're in a people business, right? So I think education in general is a people business. And you've got to be really good building relationships, and use the word trust just a minute ago. And I think the way to earn trust is through transparency, right? And some of that comes through what process and procedures you put into place, and the relationships that you make with the people you work with, and the families you serve, and the community you serve. So I've always been interested, and Paul will tell you this, even when I was hired as principal, I always had an interest in the human resources aspect of the business, because I think it's so important. And I also happen to think it's one of my strengths. Like, I think I'm pretty good at building trusting relationships with a whole diverse group of people. And I think after, this is my 11th year as principal at Baldwin, and I think this position is the one that makes the most sense for me to best serve the community. As I said at the interview, the previous interview, I have no desire to leave Guilford. I love it here. I came here, 10 years ago, and I told Paul, all 3 to 5 years, I think I'll probably move on. But for one reason or another, I'm still here, and that reason is that it's a great place. I didn't have a reason to leave. Baldwin, thanks for mentioning Baldwin. I think it's an outstanding school with outstanding staff. I'm very proud of the work we do there, and I know that will continue. But I also think this is the best place where I can help serve the community.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks. One more.
Hi, Doug. I have a question for you. We were talking about this in operations. You know, there's been a teacher shortage, and sadly, after COVID, we've seen a lot of wonderful teachers leave the profession. As the person who will kind of lead the charge in terms of retaining and also seeking out really fabulous educators, like what are some of the challenges you see coming ahead, and how do you feel that you're prepared to deal with that?
Yeah, well, I think we're in a challenging situation now. I think, Mr. Bowden, I want to thank you again for all your years of service, and I love working with you as well. And Jason's done a great job of building that foundation and already having some plans in place to broaden our workforce, to recruit and retain people. We're working now with Columbia University Group to do that, and I've been lucky enough to be included in that work as a principal. So, you know, I know we're in a challenging time in terms of recruitment and retention, but I think, you know, the most important part of that is, again, I'm going to go back to relationships, right? Is to have a strong relationship within the district among the adults who serve our kids. So building that culture is really important. Probably the thing I'm most proud about at Baldwin, and I know it's a smaller, you know, group than a district, but is that the culture and community feel there is very strong and very positive. Mm-hmm. And I think if you have that in a district, people want to come. I think if you have that in a district, people want to stay. Probably the most exciting part of this opportunity for me is trying to align the operational part of the district with the curricular part of the district. I think I think there's a lot of opportunity to align the support, because that's what operations is. Operations supports the teaching and learning, which is the core of what we do. There's a lot of opportunity to align those. And when you have a district that's aligned that way, people want to stay because there's an incredible amount of synergy there, right? It just enables everyone to be the best educator they can be. And I think that's the best way to recruit and retain.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
I have a personal one. Mr. Hamill, as both my kids also had the pleasure of having you as their as their principal.
See, I'm not the only one who did that.
And, you know, and as a parent of a special needs student, especially in 5th and 6th grade, where that still is sort of being figured out for a lot of these kids, are you ready to leave that kind of behind a little bit? How do you feel you're going to deal with that? Because the kids are going to miss you.
Yeah, I'm going to miss the kids. You know, today was out, actually crossed my mind because I was out at arrival time and I love that time of the day. And, you know, just visiting classes and so forth. Yes, I will miss that. But I would say my intention in this position, because it's a people-oriented business, is to continue to be in buildings. Mm-hmm. I don't see any reason not to be. Yeah. So I will obviously be careful with Baldwin because that's going to be, you know, an interesting transition if you vote to appoint me tonight. But you know, I do want to be out and about in buildings to get to know people. So I do intend to stay connected to kids and schools. And I do think that's one of the more important things as well. When people move to central office positions, sometimes there's the thought, at least, that they're going to become disconnected from the everyday. I really want to make that one of my aims, not to let that happen. And I think the best way to do that is to be in buildings. So I'm going to try to work that into my schedule and make that a part of who I am. And I think that is just who I am, right?
It is.
So it would be hard for me not to do that.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
Well, I just, as someone who was part of the interview, was just great, and we're hearing some of it tonight with your questions. Great to hear, Doug, some of the ways you think about the work, think about bringing together curriculum and this position, really building on what Mr. Bowden has created in a positive way. So. I have to say I left the interview. I went into the interview because obviously I know you a little bit with high hopes and left the interview feeling really, really positively about this appointment. So I just wanted to say, and it was great to hear then your ability to speak to some of this tonight as well.
I couldn't be more confident about a candidate, and again, happy to ask you for your approval of this appointment tonight.
Excellent.
So moved.
Well, so, right. Is there a motion to ratify the appointment of Mr. Doug Hamill to the Assistant Superintendent of Operations with an effective date of July 1st, 2025?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that is
Thank you
unanimous.
very much.
Welcome to this position. One of the things I believe this decision at this point affords Mr. Bowden, and affords all of us is some transition, which doesn't mean that you won't be doing your full duties as principal of Baldwin, but that is certainly a bonus as well.
Yeah, and I'm happy to speak to that a little bit. So, thank you. And having that vote done at this point, the transition that we have already planned is Doug will continue to be the full-time principal at Baldwin Middle School through the conclusion of this school year. However, in addition to those duties, Guilford is a relatively small district. Doug is going to immediately begin attending all cabinet meetings. So when we meet as a central office leadership team weekly, Jason and Doug will be attending both of those meetings, all those meetings together.
Okay.
As the rest of this year unfolds, Jason will be spending time with Doug in Baldwin, and Doug will be able to slip out of the building. Mr. Ross will be there and be just down Long Hill Road, beginning that transition work in the operations office, and so that will begin to plan that. We will, in fact, post the opening for the Baldwin Middle School principalship before we leave for winter break, and
Okay.
we will follow a principal search that will model the search calendar that we ran last year.
Okay.
We worked on the same time frame when we found Mr. Wolowitz and invited him to join us at Melissa Jones. So I'll be meeting with the staff at Baldwin to talk with them about what they're looking for in their next principal. We'll be meeting with the parent group at Baldwin. We'll be putting together a search committee. Mr. Bowden and I will be reviewing and screening candidates as they apply, and we expect to have a really strong field of candidates who are looking to succeed Mr. Hamill as the principal at Baldwin Middle School. It's a really good school and a premier school district. We're going to get really good applications for that principalship, and all of that will begin as we return from the winter break. We'll really begin that search in earnest. So we'll both be planning for the transition in central office and beginning the search for our next principal to join us in Guilford Public Schools. We're excited about both of those opportunities.
Wonderful.
And I just want to thank the committee prior and the Board of Ed. I appreciate the confidence, the kind words, and I'm looking forward to the work. So Thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Doug.
Congratulations. Thank you. All right. And again, just a great deal of thanks to Mr. Bowden for, who stepped into this
Created the position.
new position, and really built a great HR operations facilities, not department, but department, essentially. So much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated. All right. 9.2 is to act on the 25-26 calendar drafts. So as a reminder, at our November meeting, Dr. Freeman presented us with 3 proposed draft calendars for us to consider and then vote on for the 25-26 year. They differ slightly in the following ways. Draft number 1 has the first day of school on the Thursday prior to Labor Day, and then has a school end date of Friday, June 12th. Draft number, whoops. Oh, is this the one with the Christmas?
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Okay. Draft number 2 has a school start date on the Tuesday after Labor Day, which, just for context, is what happened this year and has happened the last several years. And then an end date of Tuesday, June 16th, 2026. All of these calendars are based on the required number of school days per year per the state of Connecticut. Draft number 3 adds a little bit of a twist in the following way. It does have a start date before Labor Day, the Thursday before Labor Day, but adds the interesting opportunity of taking 2 additional student and staff days off in December to add to the holiday break. So the calendar for 2025 has the Christmas Eve holiday for those who celebrate it on the 24th. This third calendar option would provide both the Monday and Tuesday of that week off and create a December break that is 2 full weeks. And then the last day of school would be the Tuesday, June 16th, 2026. So essentially, the Board of Ed tonight is deciding on a start date prior to or after Labor Day, and also considering the possibility with this particular calendar, an extended December break by giving the Monday and Tuesday prior to the Christmas holiday for those who celebrate off as well. So I'm going to open it up to discussion. I do have a question, if I may, and people may have questions as well, or you may have something you'd like to say first.
Yeah, if
before
I
we
could just
dive
make
in.
one note. All 3 of the calendars that you see in front of you have one additional minor change from the last versions that you saw.
Oh,
It was a
okay.
request made by the elementary principals. The only change is that the elementary parent conferences have been moved from Tuesdays and Wednesdays to Thursdays and Fridays to accommodate the long week that creates for elementary school teachers to be out on Tuesday and Wednesday nights working late and then still have a full week through Friday.
Okay.
So by moving those later into the week, it makes for a much more manageable work week for the staff that we're asking to do so. So those changes have been accommodated on all 3 calendars, and I just
Okay.
wanted to bring that to your attention
No.
before asking you to act. The
Absolutely.
choice 1, 2, or 3 remains the same.
Okay. And then my question, Dr. Freeman, is this. So as we consider the calendar that has the 2 days, Monday, December 22nd, and Tuesday, December 23rd, as days off, essentially no school days, that's an aspect of the calendar for next year. We might expect that would change the following year or the year after that, right? Or not?
Yeah, so yes.
Is this a short-term or potentially also a long-term vision?
It is a one-time look at this year because of the way the
Okay.
holidays fall. However, to be clear, several years ago, when we created 2 calendars consecutively where we started where we didn't start school until after Labor Day.
Right.
We thought that was a
Right,
one-time
we did.
change
Yep,
to
you're right.
accommodate the move into this building, and it became so popular that we have continued that one-time change for the last 9 years in calendars. So while this is a recommendation for this year only, specifically because of how close it is to 2 full weeks anyway, should it become a popular calendar change, we might be setting up an expectation that we make the effort to provide that kind of winter break every year moving forward. This is 1-year calendar and no commitment and not expected to be precedent setting, but just want to let you know that sometimes you do things
So that's
once
right.
and then there is an
Okay.
expectation that you continue to do so moving forward.
All right, and we did ask folks, if they were interested in providing us feedback, to do that. We have received a few emails. I don't know if colleagues have gotten feedback individually as well. I've gotten a little feedback. I haven't gotten a whole lot. I am a person who has kids now outside of the school. That's not particularly unusual. I haven't gotten a lot of feedback on the Labor Day start before or after. I've gotten split feedback on the 2 days at Christmas. So I want to open it up to discussion. Any other questions? What people have heard?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, with regard to graduation on the Friday, sounds like an excellent idea. In the event of an emergency school closing, like during snow, what happens to that? Because I know you end up adding an extra day in classes.
So a few years ago, any emergency closing would have affected graduation. Because of a change in legislation, we can, in September's meeting next year, we can codify that Friday graduation as the date. And once the board takes action on the date, the graduation date, even if an emergency closing reduces the school days prior to graduation to fewer than 180, we can still hold graduation on that day. High school seniors would be invited to come for any school days after graduation to make the 180. We have a realistic expectation of that, but it might mean that should we have a severe winter next year, that we would hold graduation on that Friday and might still have to have 2 or 3 or even 4 school days beyond graduation for all other grades to make it to the 180 needed days, but it would not affect graduation, and that remains the same for this year. This year you have locked graduation in for a Friday, and should we have snow days or any other emergency cancellation, it will not affect the graduation date, although it will affect the last day of school for all other students who are not seniors.
Thank you.
We set it last month at the Friday the 13th, which is...
We also did get one of the email communications that I think I went to the board broadly, noted feedback on the before or after Labor Day and the 2 proposed potential additional days to the December holiday. This particular individual was not in favor of that, was in favor, which is not on the option on the calendar, of adding them to the February break, because the February break is only 2 days in February. I'm bringing this up because I believe the 2-day February break is in alignment with the regional calendar. So I just wanted to say that out loud and note to that person that we did read, as we do all our emails around this. But that tends to be a regional calendar decision at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, most school districts in our regional area have a long weekend in February, but have moved away from a full week-long break in February.
Okay.
As have most regions started before Labor Day, correct?
Correct. We are in the exception to start after Labor Day, yes.
And I think we made some really responsible decisions around that. Right? You mentioned the start of the high school. I think there was a lot of us, including myself, when we were deep into COVID, where that meant a lot. That those extra few days meant a lot for parents to be able to know that we were prepared to have their kids welcomed back into school safely.
Yep.
Now talking about it, hearing people at least give me feedback, and even looking into like next year's calendar, for instance, right, and the impact that Labor Day would have on that, right? You see one of our biggest shifts that we could potentially have. We're talking about a start date of potentially, at its latest, if we were to go Labor Day this year, it would be on the 2nd of September. Next year, we would be looking at a starting date of the 8th.
Much greater impact.
Just how much of a swing you could have if we go about this idea of starting after Labor Day. I'm just going to say what I've heard from countless people. It is become increasingly difficult to find childcare those last few weeks of August, and I could say myself personally, speaking with 2 teenage daughters, they're playing sports already well into August, usually the beginning of August. So our family is already in high school mode. I could speak for those fall students, that are athletes. Starting school really doesn't have too much of an impact whether or not it's before Labor Day or after Labor Day. I do like aligning with the other districts as well. I think there's a lot of students that are eagerly awaiting summer to begin. And I think in some cases, this will allow us to really begin sooner rather than later.
And we mentioned it at the last meeting, starting on September 2nd would have a minimal impact, but starting on September 8th will have an impact on our athletic teams and when our students will be ready to begin having competitions. It will in fact make it difficult for Mr. Jarvis to begin scheduling early fall competitions. And so this year it is sort of a coin toss decision, but next year it becomes a much weightier decision with that kind of swing.
Yeah, it's a huge shift, and I just, I feel like we can go back and forth every year, but it doesn't help families kind of plan for their summers and whatnot. So, I at least, knew there was a purpose behind us starting after Labor Day for quite some time. I don't think we're in that position anymore, luckily. And I feel like we can go back to, the rest of the surrounding districts and begin before Labor Day.
If I could just piggyback on that just a little bit in terms of the 3 drafts that we have here.
Right.
That's why I like draft number 1 personally. If you're going to start earlier, you should get out earlier. And the number 3 just seems to start earlier and get out later. I understand the whole argument about Christmas break. I appreciate that, but with the schools struggling around the holidays and kids paying attention, but you're getting triple that when you're coming to June and you're staying in a little bit longer. So that's why I like draft.
It's a long
number
break
1.
anyways. It's 2 weeks.
Still almost.
Presents a nearly 2-week break.
Yeah. This year, and I know that's particular to this year. But I did the same as John. I looked up the 2026 calendar as I was sitting here looking at those 2, the Labor Day and the Christmas holiday, so.
Yeah.
We also noted this at the last meeting, there's also a value to a Friday graduation, right? And we know
Huge
that
value,
that family who travel in, we know that the families who are, it's only a 2-day difference in the last day of school, but the difference from a Friday to a Tuesday graduation, I think, impacts families and family planning. And to be able to offer that we can't do that every year, but to be able to offer it 2 years in a row, I think is significant.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that's been said. The athletics piece, now that the CIAC is letting teams practice earlier, like mid-August, you see every field is covered. And so that's one piece. The younger families, like day camps typically end. And it's a late, not late, but August 28th, they're still getting a really nice 2.5 months of summer. And the whole Christmas break thing, the one thing I kept thinking about is working parents. And I just think that that's a really long chunk of time for especially parents of elementary, middle school kids who really can't be left unsupervised. That's asking a lot of families, and I think you're going to lose a lot of traction with students. And I know the administration, the principals were leaning towards it, but I agree with you. I like the idea of us landing in mid-June. I mean, it still gives those kids 2 weeks of June and July. So, and like I said, I think that, the habit became after Labor Day because of the high school, but it's kind of negligible because it's in a late August. It's not like we're in a
This year it's
gonna work. Next year
barely
it
a
won't
discernible
work.
difference. Next year will make a significant impact.
It's a full week.
Right.
It's a big difference.
Right, right. But, I just think about working parents. I think about those same working parents at the end of the summer and, us with older children and athletics. And just, that graduation on a Friday is huge. I've had 2 in my family. I'll have one this June on Friday the 13th, Jen. But I think for plane tickets and hotel, all the things that Grandma and Grandpa are coming in, you've really got to think about that months in advance. And I know we have some flexibility as a board to kind of call that out. For all the input reasons, I think calendar 1 is likely the one that satisfies a lot of the input we've gotten.
Have others?
I did solicit input from constituents and heard a split response to the idea of before or after Labor Day. And so because the number of days on this calendar are so few, I do feel as though it's inconsequential, but I'm hearing the concerns of folks about extending for 2026 and beyond and making it a whole week later. So hearing from the constituents, I am hearing both, and there are families who prefer going all the way through summer as the month of August and starting after Labor Day.
Yeah.
And last year, we had the same conversation. A lot of this stuff came up last year, and it was split then, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
It's very
all
hard, right? And some
Never gonna
really,
get this
Passionate
perfect.
question.
We're never gonna
no,
get it.
that's right.
We counted our emails last year, and it was like dead heat.
Yeah, right.
And,
So,
and
yeah.
again, I don't know if any of my colleagues heard as much about adding the 2 days to Christmas. I heard from someone who would love to have the 2 extra days for the holiday, and then someone else who was just concerned about it being too long and trying to cover kid care. So it's just
Yeah.
such a tough. Were you going to say something?
It was, for me, it wasn't really evenly split in terms of the Labor Day. Everyone seemed to be open to that.
To which?
To starting earlier.
Starting before Labor
Yeah,
Day? Oh,
because
okay.
of the reasons that we were talking
Mm-hmm.
about.
Okay.
In terms of the Christmas, at first there was some hesitation, and then people I was talking to seemed to get really excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that, maybe there's more split, but the other one seemed like it was sort of.
Okay.
Can we work to maybe eliminate a calendar for discussion?
We can. I'm just going to ask you to hold on because, Dickie, I think you were going to say something.
The big why survey that I did at the shrimp counter, one person gave it to me and
No.
liked the idea of before Labor Day.
Yeah.
At the cheese counter, I heard that somebody would prefer post the calendar that goes just after Labor Day, the week after Labor Day. But we all met at the baggie counter, and as we discussed it, it was no big deal. That is, they understood.
Yeah.
They understood, and
Especially this
it
year.
wasn't a large sample, but it was
Okay.
alive.
Yeah. So, so it does leave us with some input. I mean, people are coming to us with reasonable arguments, right, for each. But, John, you were offering at least a thought that we could eliminate a calendar.
I was at least going to make the suggestion that we could at least focus on whether or not we start before or after Labor Day by potentially just starting by getting rid of draft calendar number 3.
Which would be getting rid of the calendar that has the Christmas, the 2 days off,
Yeah,
I want to be careful, the December.
It still holds the question whether we start before or after, but it removes the very long 2-week break that we'd be looking
Okay,
at.
so you're thinking that might be a way to go.
I think that would be a way for us to at least eliminate down to 2, or we could just go draft by draft if you wanted.
I'm happy to do it anyway. Typically,
I don't think we've ever had 3 drafts.
We have-
we've
No,
never had 3
but-
drafts.
We've
We've never had 3 drafts.
But I think I'm beginning to hear a forming consensus. I think
am
if
too,
somebody
yeah.
were to move one of
I
the
wish
calendars,
that's where I was about to go.
you might find yourselves
I think
getting
we
an
may.
affirmative vote on one.
And we can discuss before a final
Right.
vote. But if, because I'm hearing a little more before than after Labor Day start. I open it up to conversation if people are not hearing that same leaning.
And I think I'm hearing caution around the extending the winter break, which is an interesting idea. And I just want to, again, sort of remind the board that the principals were doing that for instructional concerns, but also recognizing that it's a bit of a stretch and a creative idea. I mean, so I would think that if somebody were to move calendar 1, you might find that there was consensus on the board.
I'll be the guy. Motion to approve
And I'll
draft calendar number 1.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
All right.
So just for the public, because we're throwing around numbers, although I think it may be clear, there is a motion and a second for draft number 1 of the calendar. Draft number 1 starts, has us starting on the Thursday before Labor Day. Next year, that would be August 28th. It has us ending on Friday, June 12th, 2026, and would not include the 2 additional days in December, so that the December holiday break would begin on December 24th, which is a Wednesday. Is there further discussion about considering draft number 1? Okay, so there is a motion and a second. All in favor of voting to approve draft number 1, please say aye.
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 Opposed? And abstain.
That's a great question. I'm not
Take your
ready to
time.
accept it at this
Take your
point.
Would you like more?
So,
Okay.
But I don't think it's necessary that it be unanimous either, does it?
No, it most certainly
So in
doesn't.
that case, I can vote against that.
You can.
And then say, yeah,
Yes.
I'll oppose it.
Okay.
For those folks out there who are not really in favor of that one.
Okay.
I'll go.
Perfectly reasonable
Yeah.
for you to do that.
All right.
Okay, so we have 6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Absolutely. Thank you for the honest representation.
And I know that we complicated that with 3 choices this year, but I think that this was a good conversation, and I think the community appreciates the thoughtfulness that you bring to making this selection. Thank you very much.
All right. 9.3 is to act on the Board of Ed meeting calendar. So before us, we have the 2025 proposed meeting schedule, regular meetings listed for Mondays, except when there is either a holiday on that Monday and then the meeting's on a Tuesday, and with the addition of the January 28th meeting, because we have the public forums and the workshop meetings. Is there a motion to approve the meeting schedule for 2025?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Just to understand better the workshop meetings, I believe is it the October meeting in which we meet with the district leadership team to
Yes.
discuss the budget?
Yes, traditionally, we meet in October to discuss budget with the leadership team.
And that's, October 27th, is that generally enough time for you in advance for?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. And I do think it's worth noting, while these 2 calendars are tied to the calendar that you just approved, the calendar you just approved is a school year calendar for school year 25-26. This is a calendar year calendar for your meetings as they will continue for the calendar year of 2025. So it's half of this remaining school year and half of the school year calendar that you just approved. And I allowed there to be a little confusion around that at our last meeting, so I just wanted to clarify that.
That was my fault, yeah.
No, I went right with you on that one.
And then just for the viewing public, we've started doing this a while ago, but there was a period of time during the COVID pandemic when we didn't. The what we call our regular meetings, or our kind of more business meetings, the ones we're having right now, which typically are on the second Monday of the month, are always held here in the Guilford High School Library. But our workshop meetings, which are typically held on the fourth Monday of the month, rotate through our various schools. So we get to opportunities to be at Lakes and at Baldwin and at Jones and at Cox. So welcome the public joining us in those locations. All right, 9.4 is to act on the calendars, meeting schedule, for our committees. This is our Operations Committee, our Curriculum Instruction Assessment Committee, and our policy meetings as listed here. So the Operations Committee meetings prior to our Board of Ed regular meetings every month. Policy and curriculum alternating before our workshop meetings, September through June, minus the December meeting. Is there a motion to approve this 2025 committee meeting schedule?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's everyone. Thank you. Okay, we are up to 9.5, which was the agenda item we added at the beginning of this meeting to ratify the contract for the Guilford Association of Educational Support Services and United Public Service Employees Union, UPSEU, Local 424, Unit 99. This is the contract with our union that represents the paraprofessional staff and our clerical staff. I do have a summary of the substantive agreements that are represented in this updated contract. I will note that the administration was joined by 3 board members, Dr. Hirsch, Ms. Peck, and myself for these negotiations. This contract is retroactive to July 1st, 2024, and represents the following decisions. Wages increase for the 3 years. This is a 3-year contract. The 24-25 year has a 2.75% increase for paraeducators. I'm just pointing out this one specifically, and a 3.75% for administrative assistants. It is the only year in which members of the union have a different increase, and that was very intentional because of an interest in addressing what was seen as a lower wage for the administrative assistants that we wanted to bring up. That is a total increase of 3.0% for the 24-25 year. The 25-26 year has a GWI and STEP movement increase that equals a total of 3.1% increase, and the 26-27 year has a straight GWI 3.2% increase. So those were the wages that were decided upon in negotiations. The insurance, under insurance, the employee premium contribution has for the first year, 24-25, a 20% employee contribution, which is no change from the current, and then increases 0.5 each of the next years. The other change in insurance is the PPO plan. We still had a few members on the PPO plan. It is will be eliminated effective July 1st, 2025, and only the high deductible health plan will be offered. We had a couple of other changes. This contract now specifically spells out the workday, 7 hours with a 30-minute unpaid duty-free lunch for full-time year-round and school year administrative assistants, and 6 years with a 30-minute unpaid duty-free lunch for paraeducators. And then at the discretion of the administrator, up to 10 paraeducators can be assigned to a 6.5-hour workday with an additional 30-minute duty-free lunch break. That is to accommodate work needs. The other negotiated items were around pay periods, spelling out pay periods for 10 and 12-month employees, requirement to provide certification for jury duty, when evaluations will happen, compensatory time, eliminate a reference to compensatory time because it does not exist, and then remove language around outdated language around holidays. So that is essentially the summary of what this updated contract represents. Does anybody have any questions about that before we vote to ratify? The union has already ratified.
Yes.
So it is now up to us. Any questions?
Nope.
All right, so I'm going to ask for a motion to ratify this agreement between the again, I'm just going to read out loud. The Guilford Association of Educational Support Services United Public Service Employees Union, Local 424, Unit 99. Again, our paraeducators and our clerical staff. For the 2024-2027 three-year period, retroactive to July 1st of this year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, up to item 10, reports of committees. Ms. Peck couldn't join us tonight. She is unfortunately home sick, but she noted there was no report for the policy committee. Operations committee, anything to report out, Mr. Delaventura?
We've discussed a few items from the Operations Committee. I think the only other one that was not discussed but touched upon was the near completion of 595, which will be our new, what are we calling that building? Our administrative
That'll be the new
office?
central office, administrative offices, yep.
We were able to tour this afternoon. It's beautiful. I think the space is made up perfectly. It's an inviting space. I think it's going to allow not only our team of educators and administration to be able to function in a very nice facility, but also very welcoming to the public, so that when people have to have meetings at central office, it's done so in a perfect setting. So, and it's right on campus.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll bring everyone together. So, Curriculum Instruction Assessment Committee, anything to report out?
We're about to meet later in a few weeks, but it'll be a continuation of the conversations we began several months ago on what it is we need to learn about artificial intelligence and the appropriate use of social media in and out of schools. And that perhaps some of the public saw 60 Minutes last night, in which one of the stories was devoted to what was actually, in my view, an inspiring use of artificial intelligence in the highest educational use. And to the degree that one can bring that on at the highest levels is a really a nice thing. What it really emphasizes is it's all a function of teaching. If you have great teachers who are ready to do that, you will get real benefit. If not, you will only end up making things difficult, because there'll be just nothing but repetition automated. So artificial intelligence really almost amplifies the conversation about what do we mean by creative and good teaching, and towards how do you optimize learning. Mm-hmm. And I think that was really framed. It was framed well in our workshop a couple of weeks ago by the consultant we had. So the conversation is going well, and I think that we're on our way to better understanding the good and the bad of.
Wonderful. Yep. Liaisons to town committees. Anybody on a town committee that has something to add? Okay, and no liaison to Learn Board right now. We are at agenda item number 11. Public comment to the board does not have to be on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to address the board in public comment? Okay, we ask that you keep to 3 minutes, please, and give your name and address.
Okay, thank you. Polly Reeder, 280 Sage Hollow Road. So in some ways, I think it still seems like we're stuck in 2018, back when we still had an Indian mascot here. I mean, that seems like eons ago, right? And we had a very different board. Except, of course, the mental health issues for our students continue to get worse and worse, and our district keeps adding, rightfully so, staff year after year. Since my statement at October's meeting, Baldwin is asking for another school psychologist, and for 21 of our 26 students outplaced for their education, we heard that it's due to mental health, which is shocking. So what is Guilford actually doing to turn the tide? I know, our educators are working terribly, terribly hard. So our high school, we know, starts 50 minutes before the minimum recommended by the CDC, and et cetera, agency after agency. But it's important to add that there's another half hour added on to that, because all of the buses arrive by 7:15 at the latest. So again, if we look back 6, 7 years ago, even with the pandemic and having gone through that, just within Connecticut, there are at least 5 more school districts that address start time. And they obviously have athletic programs, so that is not, an end-all be-all or a stop. Shifting the game times would actually mean a lot more parents could come to the games too, a whole lot. And at this point, so many parents are now very aware of sleep, of start time. It's a common issue, much different than years ago. And there's ever-growing mental health issues, of course. So how are things better for our high school students? Our semester exams, they're listed on the calendar. They're still held in the morning, sending all the students of the entire high school home for the afternoon for 4 days straight, twice a year. I don't know why that is. It seems to make no sense. And it definitely adds to that stressful experience a lot. In addition, 2/3 of the final exams scheduled for the advanced placement and for the International Baccalaureate are scheduled to start before school should even be starting. Some of them start at noon, 2/3 of them do not. They start crack of dawn. So we still have 1,000 students and their families, because I think, you guys probably feel this, I do too. It's not just the kids, it's a family dynamic, are trapped in this unhealthy pattern. And I think, let's just think about what could be a better scenario. Elementary students, obviously much more fitting for them to start school, to flip it for them to start school earlier, could be quite helpful for parents. And think about what a great opportunity it would be to have significantly improved after school time for quite a few kids with healthy offerings for what they could go and do after school. Rather than going home, being on a screen. Sure, a lot of kids need, time to themselves after being at school. But we could expand the programs we have at Cox and Elite and have play clubs in effect. You could use some of the Learning Pathways content, do that 2 days a week or whatnot. So we could really do a lot towards social and emotional development, executive functioning, portrait of a graduate. We could make a lot more use of our resources and of our time for the kids.
Holly, we've gone to 3 minutes, so I'm going to ask you to wrap it up, please.
So I just, we really, obviously, incredibly appreciate your service and your time. But I don't think we can just keep adding spackle and Band-Aids on this without fixing what we all know is the problem. We all know it. We can't wait around for who knows how much longer. And I know I'm not the only one you're hearing from. And we all know that properly addressing start time is the single most positive thing that you could do.
Thank you.
You don't need a huge, long process. So please, over the break and into January, consider what you can actually do to make a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board tonight? All right. Seeing none, we do have tonight an executive session that the board will adjourn to on pending litigation. Coming out of the executive session, there will not be any further board discussion nor any board voting. We will simply be adjourning the meeting. So I am going to ask for a motion to go into executive session, please.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you to all who have joined us tonight. Have a good evening.